Pokud nemáš na co koukat, mrkni na můj sesterský kanál, kde vychází propracovaná videa příběhů postav z LOLka. Rozhodně nebudeš litovat. Tady nějaký Blitzcrank Jungle, ty vole, dal challengera za kryt Blitzcranka džungli. To je co za šílenost, ty vole.
Blitzcrank Jungle, a pick with incredible ganks thanks to his hook, and now thanks to Riot's recent changes, he can even clear the jungle surprisingly fast. I have found a challenger player in Korea who is playing a ton of Blitzcrank Jungle, doing what I would call trickshot Gale Force Blitzcrank Jungle, going for a full crit
Gale Force
build that farms camps and players to buy expensive, high-damage items that Blitzcrank support would never be able to afford. But we also have another challenger player doing the one-shotting AP build, and another challenger player doing a full tank Blitz jungle, focused on being his team's play.
Takže Blitz hraje na challengeru full tank, full crit a full AP.
Playmaker. This pick is here to stay, getting even more buffs next patch. So let me show you how the
Počkej, nedostal zrovna dneska další buffy ještě?
These challengers are playing this new, super fun pick. But first, we have an incredible sponsor this week. This video is sponsored. The story of Blitz Jungle starts very recently in patch 12.19. Before this patch, it was just an idea that Blitzcrank Jungle could be a fun pick, and probably wasn't very good. But thanks to Riot, it's now actually a pick that works. The way Riot did this was first by buffing his base attack speed as well as his attack speed ratio. This is what increases the value of buying attack speed on any champion.
Hlavně do kempu má strašně zvýšený damage, že?
Get more attack speed and additionally deal 1% max HP as magic damage, which does even more damage to monsters, which includes jungle camps, dragons, Rift Herald, and even Baron. So his clear is now pretty good, and this ability is also incredibly good at auto-attack fights. Look at how he destroys these bot laners, pretty much only using auto-attacks. His E was also buffed to do way more damage to monsters, and his ultimate received maybe the biggest buff of them all. When he's auto-attacking an enemy, he zaps the target every second. This now stacks infinitely, so for the whole time Blitzcrank is fighting, every 1 second this zap will happen. And for the damage builds, this gives him a ton of damage for free. And for the tankier builds, he can go full tank and still do quite a lot of damage. This huge of a buff is pretty much unprecedented, creating a good pick from nothing. And Riot are not even done, they're giving him another buff in the next patch, making his abilities do even more damage to monsters, speeding up his clear, which is already not even that bad. Riot are all in on making Blitzcrank Jungle work. So let's see how these challenger junglers are helping.
Že Blitz už je jako viable a oni ho ještě teďka buffujou znova, no. Ještě víc.
The best jungle clear. There is one good clear and there is one psychopathic Korean clear. The crazy clear is this Korean challenger doing red at level 1 into a bot lane gank right away, using the red buff auto attack
Psychopat level 2 gank
and his E to try and set up a kill. He then runs straight to mid to look for another gank, and when that isn't possible, he goes straight to top lane before 3
Takže on dá jenom redko a jde gankovat.
minutes to get another kill there. It's a super fast and cheesy way to get your lanes ahead before the game even really starts. A much more reliable clear is this
jako když tam máš příležitost jít ten gank, tak asi proč ne, že?
One from a different Korean challenger. He starts red using the W for extra damage, smiting the red to speed up the clear, and then onto raptors. He hits each raptor once, applying the red burn to every part of the camp, and then he rotates through them doing it all again, using the burn as his main source of AoE damage since his kit doesn't have any. Then he walks over to the blast cone, resisting the urge to use his W for movement speed, saving it for the damage on Gromp. Most of the work is done by your bonus damage to monsters, so just auto-attacking and kiting as much as possible. Blitzcrank is really good at killing single target camps, so he focuses on them first. Doing blue, just autoing it to death, then wolves, again auto-attacking the small ones first with the red buff burn. This is a 5 camp clear, so it should be a bit hard to keep up with the enemy jungle, but this challenger loves hooking the crab away from them and killing it before they realize what's going on. You can even pull it and smite it away immediately, and of course next patch the clear's going to get faster. He finishes this clear hitting the other crab if possible, or doing his golems, because this gives him enough gold to buy tier 2 boots. This unlocks his predator, which he can use immediately.
On jde cooldown boty, vy to tady nevidíte, že tam mám webku, vole. On jde cooldown boty, někdy i s predátorem to chodí, jako jo.
To sprint into a lane and gank with his hook.
Já jsem to hrál taky nedávno, ono to je i video na YouTube, že jo, který možná někdo i viděl. Ale to jsem hrál taky asi s predátorem, já už nevím ani. Já jsem to šel víc tanky, ale Byl jsem docela AP, no.
Ganking with Blitzcrank Hook is one of his biggest strengths. It's no surprise that Blitz Jungle can gank better than most other junglers. Sprinting into a lane with his W movement speed, and even having their tier 2 boots early on, it becomes quite easy to set up kills. The easiest way to get a gank to work is to flash E.
Rašneš prostě boty, no, co nejrychlejší.
Should have enough damage to finish off the kill, but Blitzcrank's W is already doing some reasonable damage as well, just with his auto attacks. He can also take X-Flash, being one of the rare champions in the game where it's a viable rune. It has very style, because ganking on this champion is all about getting into a good position, so you can throw a hook that will hit an enemy. He can flash over walls to surprise enemies with a clean hook, or even use it to get around vision and set up a gank using a surprise angle instead. By the way, you know League is in a good spot when Lee Sin and Amumu can be playing bot lane and Blitzcrank can be their jungler. It's amazing seeing all these new picks. Then at level 6, Blitzcrank gets his ultimate, which of course is good damage and a great silence to stop enemies from escaping your ganks. But now this ability is an even bigger power spike thanks to the constant zaps he gets. Running enemies down and just dealing damage is now a viable strategy on Blitzcrank. Before his only job was hitting a hook and then becoming useless. Now he can actually contribute.
Asi to zase nerfnou, si myslím, no.
This is to rush objectives.
Jestli to bude moc OP.
Health damage on his W shredding through Rift Herald and his ultimate proccing over and over again.
To účko jak furt prokuje. Plus jak dáváš ty auto, na každé auto tak dáš 1% toho jakoby HP toho kempu, tak to je huge docela, no. Plus má nějak na Včku to, že dává větší damage do kempu ještě, na nějaké ability má nějak strašně zvýšený damage do kempu, no.
Meta junglers, and of course you can use it to solo dragon as well. Your W does a few thousand damage, and your ultimate lightning takes care of the rest. And worryingly, these objective kills will be even faster next patch. Riot might be creating a monster without them realizing. He starts to max W first for the huge bonus attack speed that it gives, with most challenges putting 3 points into it and then maxing their Q. This gives them the most damage on auto attacks, but still makes sure that Blitzcrank is focused on his main strength, the hook. Your goal with Blitzcrank Jungle is to get your team a big lead early on with your ganks. First item is where this pick gets really interesting, and there are 3 different paths you can take. The first is full AP Blitzcrank. This is the Predator build where you can buy Everfrost for bonus CC, or even Night Harvester for full burst damage. There is also the AD Blitzcrank build, with a rune like Hail of Blades or Lethal Tempo, and a mythic item like Gale Force. Blitzcrank can use this dash to get a range extension on his hook, doing some crazy tricks to catch out enemies, and then use his auto attack damage to finish off the kill. These builds are a completely new way to play Blitzcrank. You no longer need teammates to finish off the kills for you. You're the playmaker and the damage dealer all in one. Some pro players like this EU challenger have been doing a tank frontline build, often with Frostfire Gauntlet or Chem Tank. I think this is probably going to be Riot's favorite build, and it's all about getting your team a lead early on, and then being a reliable frontliner who sets up picks. All of these new builds turn Blitzcrank from a one-dimensional hook support into a champion that can actually auto-attack and kill people, with even the Frostfire full tank being great at slowing enemies and chasing them down, using the ultimate lightning zap to kill them. Once you get your first item, you now have enough damage to counter jungle by hooking camps over a wall, safely stealing it with no risk. Using your W, have just enough damage to kill it before it resets, so you can get gold without having to overextend. Mid-game, Blitzcrank Jungle keeps going for picks. He wants to give his team a lead so that teamfights don't need to happen. Blitzcrank is a pick support and now a pick jungler. He's very similar to playing Elise. Your goal is to repeatedly mess with the enemies and pull them apart over and over, invading their jungle, taking over the map, and forcing them out of the game. Our challenger player buys a sweeper, killing wards and creating fog of war that he can use to catch enemies and turn those kills into objectives. You can go for 5v5 team fights, but a full damage build in fights will always be very risky since you're so easy to kill. And in some fights where everyone's mixed up together, you might even help enemies by pulling them away from danger, so it's definitely better to focus on getting catches, which are a fine way to win in solo queue.
Já si myslím, že ten full damage crit s tím Gale Forcem a kolektorem a IEčkem, že to je prostě málo her, kdy to můžeš postavit, si myslím, no. Že většinou bude asi nejlepší ten tanky blitz, nebo ten AP blitz asi. A ten crit jako, to nevím už, no.
Don't forget you can even use the fake hook throw animation. When Blitzcrank hooks, his body moves sideways as the hook flies out. But this emote animation looks very similar, which causes enemies to think a hook is about to come flying at them, and so they react like...
Zmáčkne recall a enemy před ním flashnou, vole. Co mi to jenom připomíná? To byla Katarina tady to. Katarina měla tady ten bug, že nějací lidi prostě na vidu stáli a mačkali recall a ten enemy mi vždycky myslel, že hážou kvéčko, vole. A strašně to abusovali jednu dobu.
by flashing away from the danger. This pick is so different and new, we need to give it an off-meta rating, and talk about how viable it really is. Right now, Blitzcrank is a very good surprise jungle pick that enemies won't know the exact way to beat. He's incredibly good against squishy team comps, where he can easily hook anyone and get a kill. Against tanks and bruisers, Blitzcrank jungle is a bit harder. He can't just hook them and one-shot them, so this is more ways you go for the tanky bruiser playstyles instead. You might think this pick is also quite bad against invades, and you'd be correct. Blitzcrank's level 1 is notoriously great for getting picks, but not good at all at actually fighting against multiple people, so invading and taking his buff really does hurt his game plan. It's very hard to do in solo queue with random teammates, and funnily even in this game, where the enemy jungler managed to convince his teammates to do it, our challenger Blitzcrank ended the game 10, 3, and 13, dominating the enemy jungler, so invading him is definitely not a flawless strategy. He can still take over the game.
Kartuše můžeš zvednout tady z jungle Yumi možná, no.
Because he's definitely not an OP champion, but it gives us a new way to play a 10-year-old pick in a new role. And of course it works in every elo, even these challenger players are getting wins with it. On to the most important part, the builds. We'll start with what I think the meta build will probably be, and then go on to the fun one-shotting builds. This build is TANKCRANK, the playmaker, who's smart to set up hooks, tank boots early on, first item Frostfire or Chemtank. Both of them work. Frostfire is best for auto-attacking enemies to death, or Chemtank if you want more speed to make more plays. You can then go almost any tank item or support item. Blitzcrank is very versatile. Frozen Heart, Zeke's and Redemption are some favourites from the Korean and Chinese pro players. You could also add Nash's Tooth and some more AP.
Takže můžeš postavit v podstatě cokoliv na Blitzcranka. Jakýkoliv item, který dává HPčka, manu nebo tanky staty, anebo AP.
Key bruiser items like Demonic Embrace, if you want to be a tank that still does very good damage. The best runes for this build is Predator for playmaking, or Lethal Tempo if you want to be a fighter. Now, the full AP build. Same jungle item, but going for cooldown boots, buying a Dark Seal early on to help with snowballing, Night Harvester as your mythic for the highest burst damage possible, or Everfrost if you're against slippery enemies and need to CC them before you throw your hook. Then going straight into Rabadons and Void Staff for maximum damage, or Zhonya's if you need more safety. This build also works very well with Predator for early.
Říkám, ty můžeš postavit jakýkoliv tank item, jakýkoliv AP item, a když jdeš AD, vole, tak jdeš Gale Force Collector
early game playmaking, because these early kills is what gets you ahead, giving you more gold so you can buy more damage. The AP builds are the craziest by far, exactly the same start, but with a mythic like Gale Force, or possibly Kraken Slayer. Gale Force is definitely better and more reliable, then going into more lethality and auto-attack damage. This build is also the most reliant on which runes you pick, with this Hail of Blades page being the best, so you can hook someone, quickly auto-attack them 3 times, and kill them with your lethality. None of these builds are final or perfect, but they're definitely a great place to start. Thanks again to Idyiom for sponsoring this video. Please check them out at the link in the description.
Já myslím, že jako do toho AD a kritu to nebude až taková bomba, jako spíš ten AP, no. Má to docela zavádějící název to video, protože se to jmenuje, že Challenger is playing crit Blitzcrank jungle, no. Což asi podle mě nebude ten nejsilnější build. Jako hodně čempů, prostě když zmáčkne recall, tak to vypadá, jak kdyby castil nějaký spell, no. A lidi to abusou na lince, že jo, že si myslí prostě, že já nevím, si že hážeš nějaký hook nebo něco, nebo spell a že to jenom mačkáš recall, no. Docela OP pičuvina.